Duncan and Alyssa Reed are an elderly farming couple living in a quiet highland valley. One evening, a strange spacecraft crashes near their home, and they discover injured aliens, biotech beings unlike anything on Earth. Despite knowing these enemy combatants could bring danger, the Reeds use simple earth healing herbs to treat a wounded alien child's bleeding wound. Tension rises when a concordant military squad arrives to arrest the Reeds for harboring enemies. Faced with orders and memories of war, Duncan and Alyssa must choose between strict obedience and deep compassion. Their choice will test old loyalties, spark fierce conflict, and force them to protect new friends at the cost of everything they've built. Duncan Reed's knees ached as he lowered himself beside the laboring ewe, the small alien animal struggling to give birth. The lamb was coming wrong, one leg folded back, the other searching for ground it couldn't find. Duncan had delivered hundreds of lambs over his long life. His hands, once steady with youth, now trembled slightly, but purpose steadied him. "Easy girl," he whispered, fingers moving carefully between life and waiting. The ewe bled, but with quiet annoyance, not pain. Sheep knew how to endure. He guided the tiny hooves into place. After tense moments, the lamb slid free, slick and perfect. Duncan cleared its airways and set it beside the mother's head. She began the ancient ritual, licking the newborn clean with a rough, caring tongue. The lamb struggled to stand, wobbling on thin legs until it found balance. A tail wagged with joy at the first milk. Behind him, Alyssa handed him a mug of tea. 50 years of marriage showed in her slow steps and favoring left hip, but her eyes still held quiet strength. Duncan accepted the warmth. They watched together, the chill morning air filled with simple life. Then the sky tore open. Thunder came, but wrong. It wasn't thunder at all. It was a low, awful sound, sharp and loud in a way that bypassed ears and struck at the bones. A blazing object ripped through the clear sky, metal screaming as it fought the atmosphere. Pieces broke off, fiery like falling stars. Impact shook the ground. The ewe gathered her lamb close, the rest of the flock scattered in panic. Sergeant, their old German shepherd, barked fiercely, racing to protect his home despite his clouded eye and aching joints. Duncan checked the distance. 4 miles, maybe less. Near the old quarry. Alyssa moved quickly, gathering the animals. "I'll secure the flock. You get ready." Without words, they fell into the rhythm of decades working together. Duncan grabbed his rifle from above the mantel. His hands moved on their own, loaded magazine, checked action, shoulder holster on. The weight was familiar. Breathing steady. Alyssa added herbs, bandages, and their worn field surgery kit to the packs. "Could be a civilian ship," she said, but her voice didn't sound hopeful. "When was the last time we were that lucky?" The sun touched the horizon, bleeding red across the heather as they walked. Sergeant took point, sniffing the wind. The crater spread before them like an open wound in the earth. The twisted hull lay folded and broken against basalt rocks. Duncan lowered his rifle but stayed alert. The metal wasn't just damaged, it was alive, curving and branching like veins, fused with something like ceramic or bone. He'd read about biotech integration before. Ships grown like gardens, deadly gardens. Sergeant growled low, nose to a breach where emergency lights flickered. Duncan raised a fist, hold position. Alyssa spotted blue-green blood trailing from the ship into shadows beyond. It glowed faint and wrong in the dying light. Blood was blood, but this was alien. Movement flickered. Shadows shifted. Sergeant's hackles rose. They withdrew silently, careful to cover each other, moving to a small rise with good sight lines. Duncan checked thermal imaging, for heat signatures moving with military precision. 2 guarded while 2 searched the wreck. "They're organized," Alyssa said. "Military or survivors." They moved home by moonlight, haunted by the thought of what they'd found. The cottage stood unchanged, but everything inside had shifted. Alyssa boarded windows. Duncan strung trip wires from fence posts to an old motion detector from Jamie's science fair, long forgotten, but still working. They set up noise makers and traps, turning the peaceful farm into a fortress. Days passed without sleep. The sheep needed tending despite the war shadowing their lives. Duncan found 2 dead ewe near the pasture, bodies expertly opened, organs removed with surgical care. Alyssa said, "They're testing capabilities. Looking for weaknesses." Night 4 shattered quiet. Sergeant's low warning was barely a whine. 4 figures approached in tactical formation. Weapons or tools clicked in the cold air. They circled, testing. Then, chaos, glass shattered in the barn, and creatures moved with fluid, deadly grace. One was 7 feet tall, 6 limbs shifting between arms and legs, covered in plates that whispered like armor. Sergeant attacked fiercely. Duncan fired. The battle was sudden, brutal. More came through broken windows, shadows flooding like a rising tide. One smaller creature carried strange tools, medical or torture devices, impossible to tell. It rushed a wounded figure, but every attempt to stop bleeding failed. Alyssa, watching, grabbed her shotgun and medical kit. "Cover me," she ordered. But she moved already, pushing past danger to kneel beside the wounded. The alien's blood chemistry was copper-based, like horseshoe crabs. Alyssa mixed herbs with the alien's own blood to create a healing paste. The creatures froze, caught between aggression and confusion. The medic leaned close, watching Alyssa's work. The mother creature made a sound like wind chimes, broken but grateful. Together, humans and aliens created a fragile truce born of need. The wounded young one, Kimry, began to breathe easier. Eyes, too many eyes, focused on Alyssa's face. The mother's translator rendered a word of thanks. In the kitchen, alien medicine and Highland herbs combined in a dance of survival. This was no longer just a farm. It was a sanctuary forged in blood and kindness, on a world that refused to be quiet. The days that followed blurred into a strange new rhythm. Duncan and Alyssa, once simple farmers, found themselves at the center of a fragile alliance between species. The Kithrans, the biotech aliens, moved cautiously but gratefully within the walls of the Reed homestead. Each moment was a lesson in trust and survival. Kimry, the young alien who had been saved, was growing stronger. Alyssa and Duncan watched as the child's 6 limbs flexed and explored the new world. Sergeant, the old German shepherd, accepted Kimry with quiet patience, often resting his head near the small one, his tail thumping gently. Alyssa, a geneticist before the war, studied the Kithran physiology with intense curiosity. The copper-based blood, the triple heartbeats, and the strange cellular makeup challenged everything she knew. Yet beneath the alien biology, she saw the familiar threads of life, growth, pain, healing, and hope. The mother, Thiamel, moved slowly but with dignity, carrying the weight of her children and the trauma of the crash. Nix, the young medic, shadowed Alyssa, eager to learn human medical techniques. Their collaboration was awkward but sincere, bridging 2 worlds in a shared fight for survival. Duncan tended the flock, but his mind was never far from the wreckage outside the valley. The broken ship was a reminder of the war that seemed distant yet touched them here, in this quiet corner of Earth. One evening, as the sky bled red with sunset, Alyssa gathered everyone inside. The barn had been converted into a makeshift clinic, a blend of alien and human technology. Supplies salvaged from the crash lay on tables, sterile and unfamiliar. Suddenly, the emergency beacon Duncan had installed years ago shattered the fragile calm with its piercing wail. It was the sound of danger, military vehicles approaching from the rarely used mud roads. Duncan's heart tightened. Alyssa's eyes met his. "They found us." Soldiers arrived, weapons ready, led by Captain Meredith Cross, a hardened veteran with eyes that had seen too much. Her voice echoed with authority, demanding answers and obedience. The Reeds stood firm. They had chosen compassion over war, and that choice was about to be tested. Cross accused them of harboring enemy combatants. The tension was thick, the air cold as steel. Yet Alyssa, with quiet grace, offered tea, an ancient Highland tradition, a moment of humanity amid the looming threat. Some soldiers accepted, their shoulders loosening. Others remained stiff, bound by duty and fear. Cross's scan revealed the Kithrans hidden within the barn. The aliens emerged under guard, wary but calm. Thymel cradled Kimry protectively. Nyx held her hands empty, showing no threat. The military classification was clear: enemy. Traitors. But the Reeds knew better. A clash was inevitable. The soldiers' orders were absolute, but so was the Reeds' will to protect those who had no other refuge. Suddenly, the tension snapped. The sedatives given to the soldiers took effect, and chaos erupted. Sergeant lunged, knocking down the sergeant. Mechanical limbs swept legs from under attackers. Alyssa moved like a storm, calm, fierce, and unstoppable. The fight was brutal but brief. No one was seriously hurt. The soldiers who resisted surrendered, caught between orders and conscience. Then, Thymel's labor began. Stress and trauma brought early birth. The barn became a battlefield of a different kind. Alyssa and Nyx worked side by side, blending knowledge across worlds. The infant came quickly, 6 limbs folding and unfolding, eyes sealed tight against the light. A cry, foreign and new, filled the air. Life had triumphed. Captain Cross watched silently, her face unreadable. She asked why the Reeds had helped their enemies, why they had chosen compassion over duty. Duncan answered simply. Because we have seen what war takes. We have lost too much to keep killing. Life is worth more than orders. The soldiers who stayed helped carry supplies from the crash site. Old wounds and new alliances intertwined in the quiet moments between battles. The Reeds packed what they could for the journey ahead. The military transport was waiting, the path uncertain. As the shuttle slipped into hyperspace, the stars stretched into lines of light. Alyssa held the infant close. Duncan took her hand. They had chosen family over war. The alien child, Haven, slept peacefully, unaware of the long road still to come. Around them, humans and Kithrans sang, their voices clumsy but hopeful. Sergeant's tail thumped in time. For now, suspended between worlds and war, they were simply alive. Simply together. The shuttle's hum was a low constant as it cut through hyperspace, a silent tunnel stretching the stars into long lines of light. Inside, the small group of humans and Kithrans settled into an uneasy peace. Duncan watched the alien landscape of faces around him, so different yet so connected by fear and hope. Alyssa cradled Haven, the fragile infant who symbolized new beginnings. Kimry, now steadier on 6 legs, explored the cramped cabin with wide curious eyes. Sergeant curled at Duncan's feet, tail thumping softly as if keeping time with the whispered promises of survival. The group was quiet, each lost in thoughts of what had been left behind, homes, battles, lost children. The war was never far, a shadow stalking them even in this fragile sanctuary. Duncan broke the silence. Anyone know any good songs? It's going to be a long flight. The question was met with puzzled looks, then hesitant smiles. Thymel's voice, soft and musical, asked, "Why songs?" "Because we're alive," Alyssa answered gently. Yarish, the Kithran veteran with mechanical limbs, chuckled softly. Humans, insane. But there was warmth in his tone. Soon, voices joined together, some singing old Earth tunes, others offering alien melodies. None matched perfectly, but they wove a strange harmony, a song of survival and hope. Outside, the stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, indifferent to the small dramas unfolding beneath. Days passed as the shuttle raced toward Sanctuary Point, a neutral zone known for medical facilities and safe harbor. The journey was tense. Trust was fragile, especially among soldiers who had once been enemies. Captain Meredith Cross sat apart, her gaze distant but watchful. She had witnessed too much to soften easily. The memory of Mino Station, the glassed cities, the children lost, etched deep scars in her soul. Duncan understood. He carried his own ghosts. Their son Jamie had died in that war, a plasma burst at Mino Station stealing his life after 23 hard years. But here, in the quiet moments between stars, new bonds formed. Alyssa taught Nyx about earth plants, brewing teas that soothed alien digestion. Nyx showed Alyssa how Kithran hearts beat in triple rhythm, explaining resuscitation techniques no human textbook had ever covered. Kimry grew stronger, laughing in a strange, high-pitched trill that echoed like chimes. Haven, the newborn, slept peacefully wrapped in one of Alyssa's quilts. The shuttle's crew prepared for arrival, tension mounting as they neared Sanctuary Point. Freedom was close, but so were questions, about trust, identity, and the price of compassion. One evening, Duncan found Cross alone by the viewport, staring out into the void. "You helped them," she said quietly, without turning. "We helped life," Duncan replied. Cross's voice was rough. "War makes us forget that sometimes." He nodded. "Maybe. But sometimes, it reminds us what we're fighting for." Outside, stars stretched like rivers of light. Inside, two species sung together, their voices imperfect but real. For now, the war was far away. For now, they were alive. Together. Sanctuary Point came into view like a beacon in the dark void, a cluster of shining domes and towers surrounded by the cold stars. The shuttle eased into orbit, systems humming as the crew prepared to land. Hope stirred in every chest, but no one dared celebrate yet. The medical teams met them with quiet efficiency, ready to treat the wounded and process the refugees. Alyssa carried Haven carefully into the sterile bright halls, the infant's 6 limbs curled tight as her breathing steadied. Kimry followed closely, his multiple eyes wide and curious. Duncan's heart ached with both relief and worry. They were safe for now, but the war had not forgotten them. The concordant authorities would soon question everything, the choice to protect the enemy, the broken rules of loyalty. Captain Meredith Cross stood at the center of the arrival, her scars softened by exhaustion. She approached Duncan slowly, the weight of her command heavy on her shoulders. "You defied orders," she said plainly. "Harboring the Kithrans was treason." Duncan met her gaze steadily. "It was humanity." Cross looked away. "The tribunal will decide. But here, now. You saved lives." Alyssa nodded, her tired eyes fierce. "Life is more than orders on a page." The medical teams began their work, blending alien and human technology. Nyx's healing knowledge and Alyssa's experience combined to mend wounds faster than anyone expected. The hybrid birth had been only the beginning, now, they faced new challenges of trust, culture, and survival. Kimry learned to walk more confidently, the strange 6 limbs finding balance on solid ground. Haven's cries echoed softly through the halls, a new life learning to live between worlds. In quiet moments, Duncan and Alyssa wandered the gardens of Sanctuary Point, breathing in foreign scents and watching stars wheel overhead. Memories of their son Jamie, lost to the endless war, pressed on their hearts. "I wonder what he'd think," Alyssa whispered, seeing this, peace born from chaos. Duncan smiled faintly. "He'd be proud we kept fighting. Not with guns, but with heart." But peace was fragile. News came that the concordant military was tightening control, hunting suspected sympathizers. The Reeds and the Kithrans were fugitives now, labeled traitors by those who couldn't see beyond the war. Yerish gathered the group in a dim meeting room. "We cannot stay. Sanctuary will not hold us long." Thiamol looked to Duncan and Alyssa with weary eyes. "Where will we go?" Duncan's voice was calm but firm. "Somewhere they don't know us. Somewhere we can live." Plans were made quietly, new identities forged with the help of sympathetic contacts. Escape routes mapped through neutral space. The war might reach for them, but they would not let it claim their new family. On the last night at Sanctuary Point, the group gathered in the common room. Voices joined in song again, earth tunes mixing with Kithran melodies, imperfect but full of hope. Sergeant lay at Duncan's feet, old but faithful, his tail thumping softly in time. Alyssa held Haven close, her eyes reflecting the stars outside. Duncan took her hand, feeling the years behind them and the uncertain path ahead. They were fugitives, but they were alive. They were family. The night air was cold as the shuttle slipped quietly away from Sanctuary Point. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, an endless road to an uncertain future. Duncan, Alyssa, and their small group of humans and Kithrans were fugitives now, bound by choice, fleeing a war that hunted them. Inside, Haven slept peacefully in Alyssa's arms, her 6 limbs curled in rest. Kimry sat nearby, his many eyes reflecting the soft glow of the cabin lights. Sergeant lay at Duncan's feet, his old body tired but unyielding. Yerish adjusted the ship's course toward neutral space, regions unclaimed by the concordant or enemy forces. Safe zones whispered of hope, of sanctuary beyond borders and laws. But peace was not simple. Captain Meredith Cross had stayed behind, detained by her superiors for defiance. Her sharp eyes had softened during their time together, but duty bound her to the system they both distrusted. Duncan understood better than most. War took everything, homes, children, trust. It demanded loyalty but broke souls. The shuttle hummed through hyperspace, stars stretching and bending around them like rivers of light. The group sang again, earth songs and alien melodies mixing in imperfect harmony. It was a song of life, fragile and fierce. Alyssa squeezed Duncan's hand. We made it this far. We're still choosing hope. He smiled, feeling the warmth of decades and battles behind them. We live to fight another day. Not with weapons, but with compassion. Haven stirred, opening her tiny eyes, 6 orbs blinking at the vast unknown. She was the future, a new life born from pain and courage. Kimry leaned against Duncan's leg, a small warmth in the cold expanse. Sergeant thumped his tail, steady and true. They were family. The war still raged somewhere beyond the stars. But for now, they were simply alive, free to build, to heal, to sing their strange songs between worlds. Duncan looked out the viewport at the swirling stars. This is just the beginning, he said softly. Alyssa nodded, her gaze steady. Yes. But it's everything. Together, they faced the uncertain path ahead, not enemies, but survivors. Not strangers, but family. The universe was vast and indifferent. But they chose to be kind. And that was enough.